Let's talk about Spider-Man Brand New Day, which decides to bring us back into Peter Parker's life after the events of No Way Home, where pretty much everybody by the end of that forgot who he was, and now he's dealing with the ramifications of that, as well as the imminent doom that is coming. Yes, Doomsday. But let's talk about it. Hit that subscribe and hit that notification bell on the road to 50,000 subscribers. Spoilers ahead, of course. We're just going to brush into the ending, talk about the setup that this causes, as well as go back and forth between what happens in the film. So make sure that if you haven't watched the film, you know there's spoilers ahead. But let's get into Spider-Man Brand New Day. So this film pretty much is right after the events of what happened during Doctor Strange's spell, which caused the world to forget that Peter Parker exists. And now we see years later that Peter Parker continues to protect New York City as Spider-Man, though nobody in his life knows him anymore. Now, something else that's going on here is that the Department of Damage Control, which of course was set up by Tony Stark prior and has caused some havoc throughout the MCU, whether it's in Spider-Man No Way Home or as well as Spider-Man Far From Home, I should say. We also saw it in Miss Marvel and of course recently in Wonder Man, that the Department of Damage Control, they're pretty much like trying to justify why they should continue to exist, and they've kind of taken a iron approach to all of these things where they're pretty much like, we are the law and you listen to us. So the Department of Damage Control is being attacked by a criminal that they don't know who it is right now, right? And this criminal seems to be a telepath that's able to jump from person to person, evading capture throughout. And that is until Peter decides to get some help from Yelena, as well as trying to see what exactly he's able to do here. All of this dealing with the mutation from the spider, getting more control of him. Now he has organic web shoots like Tobey Maguire. He's a little bit more on the edge, a little bit more aggressive as well, and he doesn't like that either. Now, what happens here is that Bill Metzger is somebody who is in charge of the Department of Damage Control, and he's trying to also get a hold of this telepath. Now, if you don't know, this has been a big secret from the marketing of this film, but Sadie Sink here is actually Jean Grey, and it is Jean Grey who is wreaking havoc, trying to get some questions answered about what happened to her sister that the Department of Damage Control actually took, which is Sarah. Turns out that they were trying to take her powers. They were trying to just get as many of these people that have superpowers under their control in order to do, of course, nefarious things. And these are mutants now that they're trying to take control of. And Jean realizes that the Department of Damage Control is just up to no good, and that's why she kind of has a vendetta, and she will do whatever it takes, no matter if innocent people get hurt, to get to the bottom of it. And we see, of course, that some of these innocent people include MJ and the people of New York, as she almost compels her to take her life, and Peter decides to say, you know what? It's okay. It's over. I am defeated. You win. But he's able to take a photo of her. While all this has been happening, he's also talked to Bruce Banner about an inhibitor device that he uses in order to suppress his Hulk, and Peter decides to make his own inhibitor so his powers don't overtake him as the mutation continues to grow, and also working on one to suppress the telepath's abilities. We also see that he teams up with Frank in order to get MJ to a hideout, and this is where he's able to finish the inhibitor and finds out that the telepath is actually named Jean Grey. We then see that Jean Grey attacks the Department of Damage Control again, this time in person, also using the Hulk, but Peter is able to, of course, subdue her now with the inhibitor, and this is when he finds out that, hey, maybe Jean's not the bad guy actually, and it's Damage Control who caused all of this to happen. Peter is then able to find out from Yelena that Sarah was indeed Jean's sister who was kidnapped by the Department of Damage Control. And now, of course, Metzger here, who is at the head of Damage Control, is trying to experiment on Jean's mind, just as they did on Sarah's right before she died. This is what enrages Jean when she finds this out, and she pretty much locks the whole city around her and has it under her control. Peter is a bit immune to all of this and is able to enter the Department of Damage Control, but she's not budging and decides to possess the hand in order to fight him. Peter decides to take his inhibitor off in order to get his enhanced strength, speed, and as well as his webs, and is able to fight them off. But he decides not to fight Jean and instead let her into his mind, where he shows her a memory of Aunt May when she accepted his abilities and said she loved him for who he is. This is when Peter offers Jean understanding over her loss and also is able to showcase that humanity still has some good in them. And he actually also puts his life on the line for Jean when we see that Frank is going to snipe her and he decides to take the bullet for her, almost having a fatal wound. We find out that We find out from Frank Castle that Jean actually kept Peter alive while he was in critical condition, and this is what actually saved his life in the end, and now she has gone on the run. In the final shot of the film, we see that Ned and Peter share a handshake, and this is when we see that Ned finally realizes Peter. The movie cuts to black. Our post-credit scene is of Ned's Spidey tracker that showcases that Spider-Man is indeed not on Earth anymore and is in another world, and we get the final black shot that says Spider-Man will return, but we don't know when. So I thought this film was great. I think that the way they marketed the film to really throw us off that who in fact was the villain was super amazing, because for the longest we all thought it was the Hand, and then we all were just theorizing what exactly was going on. Showcasing Jean here and also making sure that we know that damage control is going to turn into something else down the line really is great world building. I think damage control will ultimately evolve from damage control to an organization that is against mutants, and I think the setup here was really great with Jean, who is in fact the most powerful mutant. And I think that what we're going to be seeing as well is a new leader come through. Could we see that from Stark starting, of course, damage control, they use his tech to ultimately make the Sentinels? And I think it's such a great way to go back to Stark and how he started off as an arms dealer and all of this, and now his own tech that he decided to be for the good of the Earth is going to be used to sort of use against other people like the mutants. And I think that's what we're going to see when it comes to the movie that they're making for X-Men. In hopefully the next 5 years, we'll see that. I think seeing Peter in this sort of dark and recluse, like lonely life he was living, being consumed by rage and the darkness within him, was such an interesting aspect for this film to like embrace, right? Because we also see it from Jean, who has gone through pain and all of this suffering, and how that could lead her down this dark path, as well as Punisher here, who has done the same. And I think you get to see how people can sort of be molded and changed by all of this, but you also see how people can overcome this, as Jean did, and also as Peter Parker does. Even by the very end, Frank Castle, I think you start to see these small little things can eventually make you get out of this like funk that you're in, this darkness, and lead you on a new path. And I really love this, how it's really is a brand new day for all of these characters from the darkness that they were in. And I'm excited to see what that will be like. And I think the post-credit scene, as well as showcasing that Spider-Man is not on this Earth anymore, is so great, because it really establishes where we're headed with Doomsday now. I think Doomsday, we will see Doctor Doom eventually destroy the multiverse. We'll talk about that in our theory video, but I think that that leads us into Secret Wars, where we'll probably see Reed Richards take some of the people and try to save them as much as he can in order to be able to fight Doom yet again. And one of those is probably going to be Spider-Man, and also maybe Jean Grey makes her appearance again, as it's been rumored she will appear in Secret Wars. I think in Secret Wars is where we also see Battleworld, and eventually we get the Black Suit Spider-Man and the introduction of Venom into the MCU. I think that that is definitely a panel Marvel is itching to bring to the live screen, as we've seen that be one of the most iconic Marvel panels. So we'll have to wait and see what that means. But by the very end, of course, Jean Grey was just trying to find out what happened to her sister, and she was hell-bent on doing whatever it took, and Damage Control truly was the true villain by the end of it. Jean was just a person filled with rage and trying to find her sister, and she was going to do whatever it took. Her sister was killed by Damage Control as she was experimented, and they were okay with that. They were okay with her dying and now experimenting on Jean Grey, as they don't really care about these people and just want to sort of have more fuel for them to keep going and growing into a surveillance state of sorts. So I think that it's interesting that the MCU is exploring here, and I'm excited to see how it's handled in the upcoming Spider-Man film. If we do get another one, I hope to see it, because I'm loving what they're doing with this new direction of Spider-Man, where they have all of these different stories interweaving, and it just really feels more like a comic book film. But let me know your thoughts and opinions on it in the comments below. And I think Peter finally realizes that he can separate himself from the Spider-Man identity and just be Peter Parker. Does MJ eventually remember who Peter Parker is? I don't think that matters. I think what matters is they've set up a relationship already, albeit as friends or getting to know each other. I think Ned is somebody who we've known can have some sort of magic, as he was able to use that magic in No Way Home, and that might be a reason he's able to sort of remember by the end, or he does really fully remember now. And it was just that being close to Peter all of this time, Spider-Man, he sort of maybe had a reflex of sorts in his mind that helped him spring him back into those memories, right? And I think that's what's really cool about the film, because we also see that Jean Grey now is off. She's off to find a new world and sort of with this new brand new day, right? And maybe eventually bumps into Xavier, and this might be the beginning of the X-Men and his school and all of that. And we'll see what happens once they fully adapt the X-Men into the MCU, because right now for Doomsday we are getting the 20th century X-Men as it's been established already with Wolverine and Deadpool. It's this universe, and I think that after Doomsday, after Secret Wars, we start to dive into the true X-Men, right? The X-Men for the MCU. So we'll see what happens. I think that's going to be such an interesting take to see, and I'm curious how Marvel's going to handle all of these different characters for sure, but that's for another video. And if you're excited for what comes next in the MCU, we'll do a Doomsday countdown as well, as we are about 5 months away. So very excited about that. And as always, I'll see all of you next time. Stay safe, stay positive.